It's Sunday, February 26, 2023. Welcome back to another edition of the Opinionated Idiot YouTube channel live show stream dinner. Hope everybody's doing well. Glad to see everybody here this evening. And I've just realized that I hate winter, especially here in the Northeast. I had to run out really quick before the show started, and running out at this time of year in like 34-degree weather is not fun. And it gets colder and colder here too. That's not fun either. So hopefully warm weather soon. How's everybody's weekend going so far? I hope everybody has had a fantastic weekend. I have an action-packed show for all of you. I've been digging around on the internet this weekend and found some interesting stories that I'd love to share with you regarding Brian Kohberger and the Idaho 4 case. But friends, let's not wait too long. Let's get right into the first story this evening. Accused killer Brian Kohberger had photos of Idaho victim on his phone, a source says. Accused Idaho killer Brian Kohberger allegedly had multiple photos of one of the female victims on his phone, suggesting that he had been specifically paying attention to her, a source connected to the case said this week. And the thing that I have to say about this, and I keep talking about this, and there's a lot of debate about this, that someone inside the sources, someone that is close to the sources, someone that is close to this investigation is leaking information. And I'm going to pull up another article in a second regarding all of that this potentially could compromise the case. And I asked a question today on my community board. Do you think that Kohberger is going to get a fair trial? This is going to potentially, there's people talking. I mean, the media is getting information from someone in this source. There's just been too much information that's been getting out. And, I have another article I'm going to pull up here in a minute from Yahoo via Fox News talking about leaks in this case. And the thing is that everybody debates this and they say it's just people making things up. It has to have some type of source. And I don't think that someone's just going to pull this out of the thin air and just say, oh, let's throw this up. I mean, we're getting this from news media sources. This is not something that I'm sourcing from conspiracy channels. This is not something that I'm sourcing from TikTok videos. This is multiple sources of media. And I know, listen, I tend not to, say the media is totally credible, but, we're hearing a lot of this chatter lately. And, with any case, you guys have to look at, with any case that's been out there, any high profile case like this, when has it been that you haven't heard anything? Source information is going to get out. People are going to talk. People are going to get paid. You don't think, you don't think that reporters don't, pay off or give money or, to any source that's out there? Of course they do. Of course they do. Let's pull up some of these chats really quick. Doyle thinks that it's from Banfield and it's a false flag. Yeah, I know. I get some shit for using her material on here, but you know what? I got to be honest with you. News Nation has really been the only source that's been reporting on this. It's all has been quiet, since. Chris Pepper's in the house. He says, let's do this. He said, everybody, please like and upvote the video. SC is in the chat. She's one of my moderators, SC. It's great to see you. Doyle keeps saying that it's Banfield would do this and keeps going on about Banfield as well. Listen, I'm not a huge media person. I tend to look at all the information and make my determination on what sources are out there. But let's continue on with this article. Love the chatter, guys. I love the chatter. So it says the images were found on Kohberger's phone when it was seized by investigators. And this is the thing, too. I think that a lot of people, if this case goes to trial, are going to be extremely shocked at the amount of evidence in this case. Because I think, and I've talked about this a lot, I think that people have this small box, this window of this is the only information that we have in this case. It cannot be, he is innocent, yada, yada, yada. That's all we have. There's going to be so much information in this case when it comes out. The file is probably, filing cabinets deep of information that I have found out and investigated since this has all began. And we're going to find out the connection when this goes to trial. We're going to find out why he went there. I have my theory on it. I'm seeing things. I'm reading things. So it says the images were found on Kohberger's phone when it was seized by investigators after he was arrested in late December for the November 13th stabbing deaths of Kaylee, Madison, Xana, Ethan, though the sources did not identify which of the female victim was in the pictures. They confirmed that Kohberger had more than one photos of her. It is clear that he was definitely paying attention to her. At the time of the arrest, Kohberger was 28. Is student criminology at WSU in Pullman, about 15 minutes of off campus where the students were killed. I'm not going to go on too much. I'm going to read a little bit more here. It says, though investigators are tight-lipped on the Pennsylvania native's possible ties to the victims, cell phone data include in the probable cause affidavit reveal that he may have stalked the neighborhood multiple times in the months before the murders. And this is where I go back and I start thinking, what do we have in front of us? When we sort through all of this information, the information that's been given to us so far, where are we at? What is the connection? I believe my theory is this. I think that he went into the restaurant of where Maddie and Kaylee worked. I think that he either became fixated on one of them or both of them. I think that he did some searching around, maybe through like a student directory, Facebook, Instagram, found out their names, found out who they were, and started to fixate on them. There's been reports out there that he followed all three of the girls on Instagram. I think he became fixated with particularly Maddie or Kaylee and tried reaching out to them and got no answers. And I think that's where the trigger was. That's what triggered him to do this. I know there's conspiracies of the drugs and the involvement and the aliens came down from the UFO and law enforcement's involved. And this is all a big false flag and the FBI and this and that and this and that. Well, if it is, come on my show. Call the show 774-855-9400. Tell me why the aliens did this. Tell me why law enforcement has done this. Tell me why this has been a big setup. Tell me it was Chief Fry. Tell me it was the President of the United States. I want to hear your story. I want to hear your evidence. I want to hear your claim to back up all of this. I want to hear it. So phone lines are open 774-855-9400. And I'm going to go on to the next story here in a minute. Let me just pull up some of these chats. Nikas B says, yes, we're going to be shocked of the evidence and the prosecution's theory. Dr. Bob says there will probably be a change of venue for this case. I absolutely agree with that, Dr. Bob. I've been reading some media sources about that because, to be tried in that county, it's just going to be almost impossible to find an impartial jury. So I definitely think the case will be moved. SC says, yes, definitely feel it's a rejection attack and wasn't expecting anyone else to be home. I completely agree. And Doyle says, once Miss Taylor is done with Dylan Mortensen, there will be so much reasonable doubt, it will be impossible to convict. All right. I still got everybody out there? All right, let's keep moving on here. Let's see. And then this brings up my my next article here from Yahoo News via Fox News. Says Idaho murders, Brian Kohberger's leaks huge issues with potential to compromise prosecution, lawyer warns. Excuse me. A slow but consistent stream of leaks in the Idaho student murders case have been dire consequences for prosecutors seeking justice for the 4 undergrads found stabbed to death last year, according to a veteran defense attorney in the state. Give me 2 seconds here. I just have to check something really quick. Sorry, guys. Let me pause for 2 seconds. I try not to do this when I'm live, but I already know what's happening. YouTube likes to demonetize me immediately when I go live. So I always have to go in and request a review because the minute I say murder or anything like that, I get demonetized. It takes some YouTube lackey about 3 to 5 days to look at my stream and go, oh, yeah, it's okay. And then my revenue stream is shot anyway. But let's see. While the case against Brian Kohberger is currently under a restrictive gag order that itself is facing a challenge in court, investigators for attorneys for both sides, as well as the victim survivor and their families, are limited in what they can publicly say about the case. It's been a huge issue that the source of leaking information, Edwina Elcox, the Boise-based former attorney of cult mom, child killing suspect Lori Vallow, that has the potential to compromise the integrity of the investigation and prosecution of this case. There are fears that too much exposure could closely followed national news story could taint the jury pool in Latah County in rural swath of farmland and mountains in northern Idaho, where more than half live in Moscow, the college town where all 4 slain University of Idaho students were living. If an employee of my office did that, they would unequivocally no longer be employed, Elcox added. The remark came after a series of reports in which unnamed law enforcement sources made claims about the stabbing suspect and the evidence against him, including that he allegedly had a stockpile of photos of one of the victims on his phone and sent at least one of them messages over Instagram before the crime. I understand Kohberger's fancy himself as intelligent, Elcox said, but as the criminology PhD student, it should have been abundantly obvious that maintaining pictures of one of the victims could provide to be problematic for him. So there's that story there. Via Fox News. Yahoo News via Fox News. Excuse me 1 second. Get some water. All right. Let's see. There was. Oh, this is actually pretty interesting too. I'm going to bring this up. Brian Kohberger could face firing squad if convicted of Idaho student murder. Brian Kohberger could face the firing squad if convicted of killing 4 college students. Prosecutors have not said whether they plan to pursue the death penalty against Kohberger if he is convicted, but it is certainly possible considering the heinous crime. Enter GOP state lawmaker Representative Bruce, I think it's Skagg, chairman of the House Judiciary Rules and Emissions Committee, last week introduced a bill that would bring back the firing squad as a legal form of execution in Idaho, according to East Idaho News. Holy smokes. State executions currently involve lethal injection. I mean, I have to say that for me, I mean, execution, I think it's a little bit more humane to do it by lethal injection. I don't think that I can completely agree with the firing squad, but interesting. Scogs bill says Department of Correction officials must determine if lethal injection is available no more than 5 days after the insurance of death warrant. The Idaho outlet said, if not, a firing squad would be used according to the proposal. Skog, who said he believes firing squad are more humane because they cannot be botched, introduced a bill after state officials had to cancel a scheduled execution in November because they could not find lethal injection chemicals, the outlet said. Other states, such as Utah, have brought back firing squads for similar reasons. All right, so essentially you would be lethal injection. If the chemicals could not be found, then you would have the backup of a firing squad, is what I'm understanding. Other states, such as Utah, have brought back the firing squad for similar reasons. Death by firing squad was legal in Idaho from 1982 to 2009 when it was banned. The Ohio State Legislature passed the bill last year that provides anomaly in companies or pharmacies that have provided lethal injection chemicals in hopes that it would spur more companies to provide them. But the state still had to cancel the scheduled execution of Gerald Pizzuto Jr. in November because the chemicals weren't available in East Idaho. News said. Interesting. So, firing squad. Firing squad. Yikes. I don't know. Listen, someone gets put to death, I think, lethal injection. That's just the way I look at it. Yeah, Susie says, give him the chair, just like funny. I wouldn't be opposed to that. The chair would be interesting. All right. Let's pull up. I got a couple of things here. Let's see. Let's go to my my audience least favorite news station. Let's pull up this. All right, let's get some details of what's going on.
Motherhood makes
After
no
this
sense.
They hand you this baby in the hospital and walk out of the room and you're like,
I do want to give you some of the reaction from the community, not only the neighbors who live nearby, but also.
It's interesting now seeing seeing King Road all boarded up like this now. And this site is actually, I'm going to talk about it. The owner donated the victim's house to the University of Idaho to be torn down, and I believe they're going to be putting up a type of memorial. From what I read, like a garden area, like a sanctuary that you can go to and grieve. So I think the house should be torn down. I don't know anybody that would want to stay in that house or Airbnb it after of what has happened there. I just if I was the owner of that house, I certainly would feel terrible about it. So let's see. Chris Pepper says, I'm not pro death penalty, but whoever did this needs to sit in a small cell for the rest of their lives. I don't know, man. It's a pretty heinous crime. I think eye for an eye in this case, my friend. All right, let's keep playing through this.
Students, who go there, what are their thoughts that this home will eventually be demolished? So I want to play some of that for you.
Some shots of the house from the front. It's all boarded, the fenced in around the area. And then that car to the right kind of looks like the police car is private security there. That's been there. And I think will be there, continuously be there until the house, the decision on the house to tear it down. So let's keep playing through this.
Now, this is what they said when they were asked about the demolition.
I heard this morning that they're going to demolish the house. I think that it's a step in the right direction. We're going to get some closure on this. Every single time I drive by that, I think about it, I look at it. If it was gone and something else was there, that would be great.
As a student, having to move frequently around campus to be able to go to school.
I mean, can you imagine though, just being a local person in that area, maybe a student that's in and around that area, living, or just even, or I guess a regular everyday person that just lives in that area, being able, you look out your window and you're just constantly seeing that house, knowing what happened there. It's got to be traumatic. And it just, for me, it would definitely just every time I looked out my window or something, it would just send, shivers down my spine. So I can only imagine, living there and being in that area, just the thought of what it does to me, being this far away from that place.
Knowing that I lived in a place where people were so brutally murdered.
You guys could do me a favor.
I think tearing down the
I got
house.
25 people watching. I only got 11 upvotes. If you guys can just get me to 20, let's just get to 20 upvotes. I would appreciate it.
Could be a good thing.
Hit that
And
upvote button
for
on the
memorial.
screen, guys.
I think it'd be good to put it here on campus in one of the parks.
I don't think it needs to be torn down. However, if it is torn down, I believe the memorial should go in its place.
I don't think anyone for one would.
Yeah, I would have thought that too, but maybe because the evidence has been basically whatever evidence they need has already been gathered from that location. I read several articles that did say that it is scheduled to be demolished soon. So I don't know. I don't know what the time frame is going to be, but certainly I would assume it's going to be pretty quick.
I live in that house, but also out of respect to the people that were killed, I think it's a good action to take, just to take it down and maybe make it to some sort of memorial or some place where people can go and learn about what happened.
So there were a lot of people who wanted to say their piece, but not on camera. And let me give you some of that reporting as well. 3 of the neighbors who actually live right around the house said that they think it's just a horrible place. They don't want to look at that horrible place anymore, quote, that horrible place anymore. And so they support that the house is going to be torn down. And a couple of other neighbors, 2 men who actually share or adjacent in the backyard with the home, they didn't want to speak on camera, but they said that it's, quote, it's spooky looking at this house right now. They knew all of the kids who lived there. They had actually partied in the yard just, within the prior weeks to the murders. They said that they wanted their families to get justice. They were worried, though, that if the house were torn down early, possibly some technicality could prevent Brian Kohberger from being appropriately punished. And this was a sentiment that our producer, our Stringer, heard repeated often around town today. They were concerned. They wanted the house destroyed, but at the right time to make sure that all of the investigative work has been done, that there can be no, loophole if the house is gone, that could be a benefit to the defendant in this particular case. It's poignant. Also,
Kristen's asking, I've heard that the owner donated the property to the university to make a memorial. Do you think it's traditional donation or was it paid for? I think in this case, if I was to give my personal thought, I'm sure the owner of that property feels pretty shitty, feels pretty terrible. And at this point, probably doesn't want anything to do with it. And I don't know how all that stuff works. I'm sure there's probably some legality in it. A lawyer will probably have to get involved to make sure that it's donated to the school in the correct way that the school can accept donations. So I'm not sure if it would be paid for or anything. If anything, if it's any monetary thing that comes out of it, I'm sure it's going to be like a penny or $1 just to show that exchange that there was some type of money that was paid for. I don't know all the legal loopholes or the laws in Idaho. Or if you can just do a straight up donation. I'm sure that this guy is not going to take a boatload of money from the school. It wouldn't be, what's the word I'm looking for? Like ethical to do that. So I'm sure they're making, working out some type of arrangement for it. Because if I was a property owner, honestly, I probably would want nothing to do with it. Just walk away, and just go from there. So yeah. So Deandra's saying that he probably gets a huge tax write-off. It's possibly so, and maybe that just eases, the stress of having the property, having to deal with it. We're hearing now that there's people that are going there and making, a bunch of TikTok videos in front of the house, and it's just better at this point to just kind of move on from it. She says most of that money he'll get back in tax write-offs, if not none of it, offs, if not all of it. So I don't know how that works. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the tax laws in Idaho. I don't know the situation, and we certainly don't know all that too. We can only speculate and give opinions. So I'm not going to get involved in all of that.
The person who witnessed some of the TikTok dances said that they were shocked, quote, by how many people all day long were doing this. They couldn't believe how often that they had been.
Yeah, and you know what? These people that are out there making TikTok videos and dancing in front of the house, fuck off. Shame on you. It's a bunch of bullshit. Look at the reality of the situation. 4 people brutally stabbed to death, and you're out there fucking dancing. And this is like where I have problems with this stuff too. I always see this, listen, I'm a single guy. I've popped on dating apps before. I look at like things when people go to like the 9/11 memorial in New York City and they're taking smiling selfies in front of the fountain. And it's like, fuck off. And I try to connect with them, and I'll try to call them out and be like, you really realize what happened there, right? Like 3,000 people died, were crushed to death in those buildings. We had, firefighters, first responders killed, innocent people killed. So that shit goes up my ass. When I see things like that, I call people out. And it's just, it's crazy. It's crazy that people would even think
doing the
about doing
TikTok
something like
dances.
that.
You'll also be interested to hear that many of the neighbors who live around the house have signs up everywhere on their windows, doors saying, no comment, no media, go away. So we were very lucky to get this reaction today. I also want to play for you what some of the students said.
It says, reporters not welcome. We do not have a statement. Please respect our wishes. And then there's another door that says, we have no statement. Please leave us alone. Yeah. Yep.
There you go. You can see some of the pictures.
Tough.
Reporters not welcome. We do not have a statement. Please respect our wishes. We have no statement. Please leave us alone. And then I wanted to give you a couple of the comments of what some of the students we talked to today felt about a memorial on campus or elsewhere. And here's what they said.
Maybe a good spot for a memorial would be
20
somewhere
people
around
watching
that area.
that.
I
You
think maybe
just get,
if we wanted to
like,
remember it more
just get it to
specifically, maybe over by
25.
the library or something to that
Yeah.
effect would be good spots for that.
I feel like having the memorial on campus would definitely
Well,
be
you got to think, Therese, it's like these people have had to probably bombarded with media, over and over and over again these past couple of weeks. It's going to continue all the way up until the conclusion of this trial to try to get something. Reporters are going to, that's what a reporter does. They dig, they knock on doors, they talk to people, they try to see an available person that's walking by for a comment, anything that they can use to get a lead story or get new information out there to bring clout to either the station they're with or with themselves. If they can just break some type of news, that's definitely what it's what their job is. She said, yes, just because they live there. Absolutely.
a lot better than off campus.
As far as building a memorial on campus, I think that definitely needs to happen. It's a beautiful campus, so I think anywhere.
774-855-9400 if
I am
anyone
not
wants
exactly
to
sure
call in
where their
with their
memorial should be, but I
or
don't
how
think
they
it should
feel
be at the
about
place
the
of
case
their
so
murder.
far.
Because
You
to
think
be
that Kohberger is innocent or
tied
guilty?
to
You
just
think
their
it's
deaths is
aliens
not
that came down and
something
did
I
it?
wish upon
Is it
anyone,
law
and I would
enforcement?
rather celebrate who they were in
What is
life
your
than
angle?
mourn
Hear
them
your
for who
story.
they were that night.
So there you have it. There are some of the thoughts of those who are in the community about both the house being torn down and the memorial being built. Thank you for watching.
All right.
Go to.
I know that's everybody's favorite news journalist, but not so much. Guys, I want to let you guys all know I am working on getting a guest, actually a panel of guests on the show. We're just working out a date and time, and that future show should be coming up in the next couple of weeks. I'm super excited about that. It's I don't want to reveal who it is, but I'm sure it's another true crime channel that you guys do watch, and I enjoy their content. So should be a good fun show. Dr. Bob says there is a huge field across the street, and I would not be surprised to see it built there. That is possible, Dr. Bob. It could be possible. All right, let's pull up another video here, and then we're going to end the show this evening with a really great video from online, the YouTube channel King 5 Seattle. It's a news station there, and they just put together kind of a 30-minute video, or like little docu-series of what happened in Idaho on King Road. So let's pull up another quick video here to get us kind of caught up with some more new developments. And
News Nation has been covering since the very beginning the quadruple murder of 4 Idaho University students. The school now announcing the house where the killings took place will be torn down. The house was given.
Yeah, and Kristen, you make a good point. The only reason I've really been bringing up Banfield lately is because, News Nation, I'm not really particularly a huge fan of their channel, but they've really been the only ones that have been reporting on this. And I'll be honest with you, all of the videos that I've watched from there have been pretty straightforward. When I cross-reference them to articles that I read, it's pretty much the same information. I'm a visual person, and I know when people watch a show, they don't want to just see me read a bunch of articles. But a lot of the articles that I'm cross-referencing with this information that's out there is the same. So, to have a presentation in a show, it's nice to do it visually so we all can see video and hear a voice and graphics. It just, if I can sit here and read articles all night, you guys are going to get bored. So, Banfield, the way I look at it, she's been pretty much playing this straight down the pipe. Again, it's not my particular news station that I enjoy, but the information, in my opinion, has been pretty straightforward.
Given to the university by the original owner. The school will be opening a memorial garden on campus. Meanwhile, we are learning more about suspect Brian Kohberger's possible connection to the 4 victims. People magazine reporting that Kohberger had photos of one of the young women downloaded on his phone.
I believe this. I believe this source. I really do. And I think it's going to go back. And I just, I go back and think about this, where the restaurant distanced themselves right away from when this popped, right from the start. They distanced themselves hard. Oh no, he never came in here. We never saw him. He's never ordered from here. I think this is where the connection is. I think this is where Kohberger possibly could have saw those 2 girls and became fixated with one of them.
Not reveal which one. Joining us now, former FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffendorfer. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Natasha.
If it is true that Kohberger had photos of one of the victims on his phone, how significant is this, and how does it change this case for prosecutors?
Well, it certainly is significant if indeed that information exists. It gives us an insight into what Brian Kohberger was looking at, what Brian Kohberger was interested in, and it makes a direct connection between Brian Kohberger and at least one of these victims.
And there's been a lot of speculation on how the victims could have come into the suspect's crosshairs, from social media to maybe a restaurant 2 of the young women worked at. How likely is it that the suspect made some sort of surveillance of the victims ahead of the attack?
Well, we know from the probable cause affidavit that indeed he was in that vicinity at least 12 different occasions. So that would lead us to believe that definitely there was a connectivity in terms of possible surveillance, just based on where he was proximal to this house and to these victims.
And that People magazine article did not detail what kind of photos were on his phone, if they were just downloaded from social media or actually physically taken by Kohberger himself.
I reported that in some articles that I read, that it was Instagram that he had gone on and liked all of Maddie's photos on her Instagram and then had been reaching out to her. And there was reports about that about a month and a half ago that got leaked out. And then since, his Instagram was deleted, I'm sure that if that's true, the FBI or, law enforcement had downloaded that information. That's probably maybe something that we see at trial. And then as far as the photos, it could be that he downloaded her photos allegedly from Instagram, or, I don't know if he has photos of her on, photos that he took, which would be crazy. But that hasn't been revealed. But I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of time in between now and June, and there's going to be a lot of leaks. And I'm just scared because this definitely could compromise this trial, because there are people talking. There are sources that are close to this case that are talking.
Would it make a difference in the investigation if it were one or the other?
Yeah, certainly stronger if it was surveillance evidence. In other words, if it was something he took from that phone as opposed to something he downloaded.
Doyle says the leaker is good friends with Banfield.
From another site, such as Facebook.
There are gag orders in place, and authorities are trying to keep details of this investigation under wraps, certainly. But articles like this are circulating. Public interest still so high in this case. Are articles like this, details like this, likely to impact this case or this trial?
I don't think they will negatively impact. Where there becomes a significant impact is when the information is from the players themselves, from witnesses, from individuals involved in this trial, from the lawyers, because outside of that, this is just the media really exercising their First Amendment rights.
I tell you, for a small guy, he's got strength. You can see it in that upper shoulder area across here.
And Jennifer, I know that despite the gag order, you've been tracking the minutia of every detail of this case. In your mind, what is the most significant thing to come out in the last couple of weeks?
Well, I think it's very significant. Some of the interviews conducted with his previous friends, his circle, and it shows us that he did everything in a very big fashion, if you will. When he went to lose weight, it wasn't 10 or 20 pounds, it was over 100 pounds. When he performed in school, it was big. He did a good job with his grades. And finally, just talking about his drug addiction, this wasn't smoking.
Yeah, you can see King Road all boarded up, that private security car to the right, and it looks like there's a truck right to the left. I'm not sure what that is, but this is kind of what the house looks like now, and will most likely remain this way until it's demolished.
A joint as someone in high school, this was shooting up heroin. So it seemed like everything he did was in sort of grandiose fashion.
What can we read into someone who lives their life in extremes like this?
Well, I think we can read into it how somebody who, again, is accused of these very heinous crimes could have been passed over and committed them in extraordinary fashion, as we've seen from the devastation of these 4 lives being lost.
All right, Jennifer Coffendorfer, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay. So real quick, Christine says, and she's a channel member, and I want to thank Christine for her membership. If you guys want to join and support the channel, you can go down there and hit the join button. I have memberships to support this channel for $2 a month, and all that money gets recirculated right back into this channel to give you guys the best experience here. So Christine, I really do, I do appreciate your membership. She says, I really hope it's BK, and I think it is. Thinking of another person who could do this that's still out there is scary. Absolutely. And I think that was, the stress in all of this, with that whole, month and a half after this happened. I think people were really stressing out, especially in that area when we didn't have a suspect, and it really wasn't looking like, the Moscow police had any idea of what they were doing. I myself, I was, very nervous that Chief Fry had no idea what he's doing, and then come to find out he had, all this FBI profiling training. He went to a special FBI course for like 8 to 12 weeks and did all these FBI activities. He had friends with the FBI, and I think that helped assist in this investigation, to call them and get them involved. Listen, the FBI is involved in this case. There's going to be a lot of, forensic evidence in this case. I think the defense file is going to be huge. And there is and I always say this, there is a ton of information that we have not heard in this case yet, but it's slowly leaking out there. And that does scare me. It does scare me. Real quick, guys, if you can, if the first time over here, please make sure to subscribe, hit that thumbs up button. I really would appreciate it. All right, I'm going to pull a little, a small video, probably about a 10-minute video from the Daily Mail. I really like this as well. I believe this has a theory about the sheath as well in it. And then we're going to end the evening with a 30-minute video that King 5, it's a Seattle news station, had put together and dropped the video about 6 days ago. It's kind of a little mini docu on the Idaho murders. I want to just pre-warn this. There is some music in there. There is some news clips. The live stream may get shut down. I hope it doesn't. But if it does, we'll be back on Wednesday night. I can't prevent YouTube from taking down the stream, and it's happened before when I've played actual like news stuff. But we'll see how it goes. We'll play through this first and go from there. I'm sorry, my stutter is really bad tonight, so I apologize for that.
I'm heading to my second
commercial to end, and then we'll get to this video. All right.
To the crime scene on King Road in Moscow, Idaho at night, sort of eerily peaceful at this crime scene. This is an idea of what it would have looked like the night of the murders. The media circus has left. I am the only reporter here right now, and you can hear a pin drop out there.
Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogen, and Kaylee Goncalves were brutally stabbed to death in the middle of the night, and we still don't know why. What was the motive? Who was the target? Now, these are some of the biggest unanswered questions in the case of the Idaho Four, and I've waded through all of the information out there about the crime, the victims, and the suspected killer, Brian Kohberger, to piece together some answers. This attack was brutal. It was extremely violent, and it was personal. But why did the killer do it? Could the answer be as simple as a crime of passion? Well, just days after the murders, Brian Kohberger allegedly told his neighbor just that. Now, this was weeks before cops would zero in on him as their prime suspect. The neighbor told a CBS reporter that—
I still go back to this shot too. See those eyes? Look at those eyes. Look at the frown lines. That is someone that is scared. I mean, I manage people for a living, and I can just tell body language. He is concerned and scared. And you can see the body language too. The hands down right on the lap, just bracing.
That Kohberger,
those eyes are just telling everything. Like, what the hell, man?
Brought up the murders in casual conversation and said, quote,
"It is creepy.
It seems like they have no leads, like it was a crime."
To me, it just sounds like he had, the body language is showing you're hiding something. He's closed in, the hands are down, the face is up, the frown line's there, like, uh-oh.
Passion. The 28-year-old PhD student has been described by those who know him as being pretty awkward, particularly with women. In the weeks since his arrest, only one ex has come forward, and the term ex is really an overstatement. These two went on an awkward first date many years ago, and that is as far as it went. And a brewery owner in Pennsylvania claims that Kohberger made his female employees and customers uncomfortable by pressing them with questions about their living situations and getting irritated when his advances were rebuffed. So we've got this picture of a guy who isn't great with women and may have had an axe to grind, particularly if one of the female victims turned him down or ignored him, which is my working theory. Plus, some experts think that the killer was satiating a sexual desire. None of the victims were sexually assaulted, and criminologist Dr. Casey
Bob, that was talked about too. Yeah, that cut on his hand that was healing, and that was some of the speculation of, they say the FBI wasn't involved in the 2 car stops, but there was many sources out there that said that it was to get eyeballs on him, to get him confirmed ID, and then try to get some video or pictures of his hands to see if he was cut.
Jordan believes that the murderer was supplementing the act of stabbing for the act of sex. Up to this point, none of the evidence that we are aware of reveals a direct link between the victims and the suspect. Kaylee's family said that they don't really recognize Kohberger at all, but they added that they are seeing connections between him and Kaylee. And sources say he followed all 3 of the female victims on social media. Now, a bunch of fake accounts have popped up on Instagram purporting to be him, but one account at crim.kohberger may actually be the real deal. A source with a connection to the investigation also came forward saying that the suspect allegedly messaged.
The thing is, and I've gone over and looked at, the girls' Instagram accounts to see if I could see anything that's weird or whatever. And it's like, they just seem like they had a very normal college life. And that's why, these conspiracies, there was drugs in the house and they were trafficking drugs and all this other stuff. I just don't see it. I don't see it in their lifestyle. And I know that some people can put on a persona that they're the most perfect person in the world, and behind the scenes, they could either be a total criminal or a murderer or a drug addict or whatever. But I just don't get that vibe. I just don't see it. So
one of the girls repeatedly on Instagram and got no response. Now, the messages were described as being innocuous, just a, hey, how are ya? But they were ignored, which may have been interpreted as rejection. Even if Kohberger did follow the victims on Instagram, how he came across them in the first place is another piece of the mystery.
Save yourself, ditch the almond milk. Probably notice there's a lot of alternatives to.
Brian was new to the area, having moved to nearby Pullman, Washington in June of 2022 to begin his doctorate in criminology at Washington State University.
And that's why I think he picked girls at the University of Idaho versus WSU, because it would be somewhat too close to home. It would just be a little bit more obvious. Now, listen, I don't think he's the most, allegedly, if he did this crime, is not the most smartest criminal in the world to only go up about 15 minutes up the road, but it would create a little bit of a distance and maybe throw law enforcement off. So
WSU and the University of Idaho, where the victims were students, are just 10 miles apart with pretty much nothing but farmland in between. Moscow, Idaho is this really quaint, inviting, charming little town, while Pullman is just kind of cold by comparison. WSU students often go to Moscow to eat and shop and hang out and things like that. Kohberger is also a strict vegan. When I was staying in the area,
we'll talk about the restaurant and the connection, and that's what I think. That's where I think this stems from.
I looked for vegan restaurants, and there just weren't any. The best you could hope for are vegan menu options, and one of the first places that pops up when searching for that is the Mad Greek in Moscow, and that is where 2 of the victims, Maddie and Xana, worked.
Yep.
A former employee told People magazine that Kohberger came in more than once for a vegan pizza. Now, the owner,
I'm telling you, that's we're going to find out where this connection was.
Of the Mad Greek swiftly denied that story, but the report also said that police are aware of the visits and took surveillance video from the area.
Boom. There you go.
From the get-go, police were convinced that these murders were targeted. Now, law enforcement never said who they believed the target was, but a lot of people think it was Kaylee Goncalves. Now, determining who was killed first could be the best indicator as to figuring out the killer's main target. And one of these surviving roommates told cops that she was awoken around 4 a.m. to noises coming from the 3rd floor. Now, that is where Kaylee and Maddie were sleeping. At the time, she thought it was Kaylee playing with her dog, but then she heard one of the girls saying something chilling. Someone is here. The killer also dropped a knife sheath on the bed next to Maddie's body, so it's likely that this was the spot he first removed the murder weapon from the sheath. Now, the ferocity of Kaylee's wounds suggests two things. The first is that the majority of the killer's rage was directed at her, and the second is that she may have been the first kill when the murderer was at his strongest. Kaylee's dad has also pointed out, if those girls weren't a target, the killer would have had no reason to go up to the 3rd floor. Xana and Ethan were found on the 2nd floor, nearest to where cops think the murderer entered and exited. All of that points to the killer starting the stabbings on the 3rd floor with Maddie and Kaylee. Now, DNA transfer from victim to victim will forensically determine the order of death, but that will not come out until trial. So if the 3rd floor victims were the main target, why were Xana and Ethan also killed and 2 other roommates left alive and unharmed? Maddie, Kaylee, and Ethan were all killed in bed, but Xana was likely up and awake. She was on TikTok minutes before being stabbed to death, and she had defensive wounds, and her body, unlike the others, was found on the floor. The surviving roommate heard crying coming from Xana's room after the noises upstairs, and the killer, she said something to the effect of, "I'm going to help you."
I got to give a good shout out. This is a very detailed news report. Very, very good.
Prior to her death, Kaylee Goncalves mentioned having a stalker. She was referring to 2 guys in particular who police found and cleared, neither of whom were Brian Kohberger. But just because that lead didn't pan out doesn't mean that the victims weren't being stalked. According to law enforcement, the suspect's phone pinged in the area of the home 12 times in the months before the murders. And Kaylee's family said Kohberger allegedly got so close he connected to their Wi-Fi with his own phone. And this particular home at 1122 King Road is just an easy target. It's 3 floors, it has a really unique layout, and it's situated on a hill.
Where I'm standing is the vantage point that the alleged killer would have had if he parked back here, which is where the Hyundai was seen and what cops believe happened.
And depending on where you stand, you can see directly into every single window. Now, as I mentioned, the layout of the house is strange. The 1st floor has 2 bedrooms. The 2nd floor also has 2 bedrooms, as well as the main living area, which is accessed by this sliding glass door in the back. There are also 2 bedrooms on the 3rd floor.
$2 super chat.
The timeline of the murders has been narrowed down to less than 20 minutes between 4:04 a.m. and 4:20 a.m. Now, in order to get in, kill 4 people, and get out in that time frame with such a strange floor plan, the killer had to have had a solid idea of how this house was laid out. Now, this was a popular off-campus party house, and based on everything that I have learned and researched, it's plausible that the killer had been inside maybe more than once, just disguised as a party goer. Law enforcement has searched high and low for the military-style K-bar knife that the suspected murderer used. It's a standard issue knife given to members of the Marine Corps. The sheath has this insignia of the military branch stamped on the side. The medical examiner confirmed that the victims died by multiple stab wounds by a fixed blade knife in the upper body and torso. Now, the sheath was dropped next to Matt.
Kristen brings up a really good point here. She says perhaps he asked for her number, and she said, "You can follow me on Instagram," as a nice blow off. And then he did try to talk to her and ignored him, so he felt the rejection and made his plan. That's really good, because I work with a lot of young, I call them my kids. They're in their late teens to early 20s, and that seems to be like a big thing with them. Is Instagram is very big with them, and they've said that to me before. I've met a guy out, and I'm just like, you can follow me on Instagram and message me through there, because you're not actually giving their phone number out. So that's a really, really great point that you pull up there, Kristen. Really, really good. Give you a bell on that one. That was great.
Maddie's body, and it contained the killer's DNA. Unfortunately, though, for investigators, the murder weapon didn't turn up at the crime scene or during a search of Kohberger's apartment and office on the WSU campus. Now, his white Hyundai Elantra was dissected by a forensics team as well. And it's possible, albeit unlikely, that the knife was recovered there. But the results of that search are currently under a gag order. Now, the route that police believe the alleged killer drove from the scene of the crime.
I must say, this reporter definitely put a lot of work into this video. Shout out to the Daily Mail. It's a really, really great video. And I can only imagine how long it took her. Well, she's professional, but I know when I do videos like this, it takes quite a while to record. So really great effort.
Back home is this long, winding, roundabout journey through just pitch black, sprawling farmland.
This is the house behind me. It's a very sort of desolate, just residential area. It looks like it's the middle of the night here, but it is just about 6 p.m. and there is little to no foot traffic or cars coming down.
Kohberger and his father also drove cross-country in December from Washington to Pennsylvania, which would have provided ample opportunities to potentially discard a murder weapon. The next court date is a ways away, June 26th, but this hearing will lay out almost everything that the prosecution has on Kohberger, including a boatload of information we don't yet know about. The probable cause hearing usually happens within 2 weeks of arraignment, but Kohberger waived his right to a speedy trial. So in this case, the prosecution and the defense have roughly 5 months to prepare. When the date finally comes, both sides will present evidence and call witnesses so a judge can determine whether or not there is enough for this case to go to trial, and we expect it to. Now, as it stands right now, Bryan Kohberger is facing 4 counts of first-degree murder and felony burglary, and he hasn't yet entered a plea.
Huge shout out to Daily Mail. That was really great. Great news story. A lot of work put into that. I can admire that. All right, everybody's still with me. So let's finish the night out with this little 30-minute kind of mini docu. Again, I'm not sure if I'm going to get shut down or not. Hopefully we can get through it because I know there's a lot of music on it. Probably what will happen is they'll just demonetize me and not allow me to make any revenue from the stream. But I don't care because I think it's worth watching, and we'll end the night out with this. So if anybody's interested, it's from King 5 Seattle YouTube channel, and it's this little mini docu-series.
Where's the poop? Seriously. If someone's colon is clogged and they have constipation and it's been 2, 3
Oh boy.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to the
Save
beginning
big
here.
and sleep
Get another
better.
commercial. Everybody's got to get paid. They got to make their money. All right. Here we go, guys. Let's finish it out.
We begin with breaking news out of North Idaho.
Just a moment ago, Moscow police confirmed 4 people were found dead in a home.
Xana Kernodle.
Xana, you will not be forgotten. You have impacted so many lives and have given people so much love. I hope I can make you proud and try to leave an impact on this world and on people like you did.
Ethan Chapin.
We are eternally grateful that we spent so much time with him, because time is precious and it's something you can't get back.
Madison Mogen.
So just smart and funny and beautiful. She was just nice to everybody.
Kaylee Goncalves. They shared everything. They came here together. They eventually get into the same apartment together. And in the end, they died together.
Oh.
The Idaho murders rocked the small town of Moscow, captured the national attention. We'd soon learn that 4 college students were stabbed to death, murdered weeks before Thanksgiving. It would take police thousands of tips, hundreds of interviews before arresting Bryan Kohberger, the suspected killer. Let's go back to November of 2022, when this all started.
First, my deepest condolences to the families. And friends of Ethan, Kaylee, Xana, and Madison. Excuse me. Their loss has been devastating, and they were bright lights in our community.
The 4 victims were found dead around noon on Sunday, November 13th, 2022. and a house just off the University of Idaho's campus after another roommate called police.
The results of autopsies indicated that the four were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds, and there was no sign of sexual assault.
Police say all four had been out until about 2 that morning before returning home. Documents show Xana Kernodle was awake around 4 a.m. She was on TikTok and ordered food through the app DoorDash. One of the surviving roommates told officers she woke up and heard what she thought was crying from Kernodle's room about 4.
Does anybody know where the food was ordered from? I've never got any report on that. If you guys know, if someone could chat that, where was the food from?
17 in the morning. A security camera about 50 feet from the wall of Kernodle's bedroom picked up distorted audio of what sounded like a whimper, followed by a loud thud and a dog barking. The roommate says she opened her door and saw a man in black clothing and a mask. Court documents say that man walked by her and out of a back sliding glass door. The roommate then locked herself in her room.
At this crime scene, we collected 103 pieces of individual evidence. We took approximately 4,000 photographs. We've conducted multiple 3D scans of the residence, and we have hundreds of hours used by tech.
That's going to be really interesting to see those at trial as well. The 3D scan, they have this incredible camera now, or they've had it for quite a while, sits on a big tripod and literally takes a 360-degree panoramic in like full HD pictures, images, it's pretty incredible. It's like a laser that scans the whole entire room and gives a 360-degree virtual reality experience of what a crime scene can look
Technicians
like.
and
Pretty incredible
investigators.
equipment.
Outside the house, police say the suspect's alleged movements played a big role in connecting him to the crime scene. Using cell phone records and security camera video, investigators determined Kohberger's car and cell phone left the Washington State University campus, where Kohberger lives, at 2:44 a.m. on the night of the murders, headed for Moscow. Investigators say at 2:47 a.m., Kohberger's phone was either turned off or put in airplane mode. It didn't come back on until 4:48 that morning. A white sedan matching Kohberger's Hyundai Elantra was spotted in the area of the murder scene from 3:29 a.m. until 4:20 a.m. Court documents show the vehicle drove by the house 3 times, about 3:30 in the morning, before leaving the road. Then at 4:04, the car returned to the street and parked. Then it left the street at a high rate of speed at about 4:20 in the morning. The suspect's car was spotted back on the Washington State campus at 5:25 a.m. However, that wasn't the first time that Kohberger's car was near the victim's house. Was Kohberger stalking the victims? That's a question investigators sought to answer when they obtained a search warrant for records from Kohberger's cell phone. Court records say on at least 12 occasions prior to the murders, including one time back in August, Kohberger's phone was detected near the murder scene in late evening and early morning hours. 2 weeks into the murder investigation, a break in the case. On November 25th, police asked the public to be on the lookout for a white Hyundai Elantra. On November 29th, a WSU police officer looked up Elantras registered at the school. One of those was Kohberger's. Investigators tracked him from Washington State to Pennsylvania in mid-December in that same car.
Hello, how you doing? How y'all doing today?
I will say that we have found an Elantra.
But it was DNA evidence that solidified Kohberger as investigators' prime suspect. The 18-page affidavit says the Idaho State Lab found a single source of male DNA labeled suspect profile on the button snap of a knife sheath left at the crime scene.
The reason DNA is so compelling is because it is a unique signature. Unless you have an identical twin, no one has your exact DNA.
Right. Cece Moore is the chief genetic genealogist with Parabon. She pioneered the genetic technology used in solving cases like the Golden State Killer. The techniques can crack a case with a tiny sample of DNA.
Based on the affidavit in this case, it looks like touch DNA is likely what they had to work with. That's just skin cells.
Kohberger's affidavit shows that on December 27th, Pennsylvania agents took trash from his parents' home in Albrightsville.
The Supreme Court, the federal Supreme Court, has
Let
ruled.
me ask you guys a question. Would you be all shocked that when we get to the June hearing, that when the prosecution lays out the entire evidence in this case, the entire overall picture, that we find out that Kohberger went to that restaurant, stalked the girls, did this crime, his blood DNA was everywhere in the house, it mixed in with their blood, the victim's blood all inside the white Hyundai Elantra. Would that shock you? How are you guys feeling about this so far? Let me know in the chat. Would it surprise you? Would you be shocked? Because I still think a lot of people out there haven't made their mind up about this case. I still think the evidence is very, very strong against Kohberger. Super strong. Would it shock you to find out? Are you one of the people that are on the fence? You don't know. And then if you heard more details, when you hear more details, if this goes to trial and find out that his blood is everywhere, their blood was all inside the car, back at his apartment, they found victim's blood there. Would it surprise you?
That when we throw something away, we are abandoning that. So we are abandoning our DNA everywhere we go. And it has been ruled, at least so far, that that's fair game for law enforcement.
That trash was sent to the Idaho State Lab, and within a day, the lab had another profile.
It certainly appears that they retrieved his father's DNA from the trash.
Investigators reporting more than 99.9% of the male population is not expected to be the suspect's biological father.
Those are the ones that we hear in court. Those are the ones we hear law enforcement using as evidence, that there's a 1 in huge number chance that anybody else could be that DNA contributor or be the parent of that DNA contributor.
3 days after the investigators went through the trash, Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home on December 30th. Early on, police learned Kohberger had an above-average understanding of police investigative tactics. According to court records, Kohberger's past education included undergraduate degrees in psychology, cloud-based forensics.
He was definitely well-mannered, very intelligent.
He received his associate's degree in psychology at Northampton Community College in Pennsylvania in 2018. He then went on to DeSales University, also in Pennsylvania, for his bachelor's degree, then his master's in criminal justice. He studied under renowned criminal psychologist Catherine Ramsland, whose books include The Mind of a Murderer and How to Catch a Killer.
He was definitely selectively quiet. I think once you got him going on something that he was interested in, it was very clear that that was where he would take the initiative and say, hey, here's how much I know about this thing.
In May, just before he graduated, authorities confirmed he posted this Reddit survey asking participants to, quote, provide information to understand how emotions and psychological traits.
Real quick, Kristen says, I can't imagine if he did this, that there's no blood somewhere. He was too sloppy in other places to think he didn't leave blood. And that's why I think that, the sheath being left at the scene, that's why he went back, allegedly went back at the earlier that morning. I think he was going to try to sneak back in, get that sheath, or possibly went back to see if there was any activity in and around the house. Nika says, they have that much evidence. I guess I would be shocked that that he just didn't plead guilty, and that may be something that they're contemplating right now. We don't know. That is a possibility. Like, look, they could be working out a lesser charge or something like that, a plea. But to me, that affidavit is strong. It's really strong.
Influence decision-making when committing a crime. He asked questions like, how did you leave the scene? How did you accomplish your goal? And how did you approach the victim?
Charge your phone 40% faster with this new 4-port charging device. This 30.
Investigators also now know Kohberger applied for an internship with the Pullman Police Department in the fall of 2022. Kohberger wrote in his essay he had interest in assisting rural law enforcement agencies collect and analyze technological data in public safety operations. During his time at Washington State University, Kohberger was listed as the teaching assistant for 3 undergrad classes in the
It
criminal.
could be too, that, like most of these killers and serial I mean, look at the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, all the evidence that was against him too, but it becomes a spectacle to them. They almost become like a sideshow, almost like they want to go through it for the, the admiration and the publicity. So yeah, you get a good point, Kristen. Definitely good point. Great points. This
Justice Department. He completed 1 semester in WSU's PhD program before he was arrested.
You never expect someone to do that, and I think it would be, not truthful to say like, oh yeah, I definitely saw it coming, but like really thinking about it, like it's
Yes,
not
I'm in the
that
northeast,
surprising.
my friend. I'm in the
Kohberger was
northeast.
extradited to
Probably
Idaho
could figure
January
where I'm
4th.
from by
He
my
remains
accent.
behind bars without bail.
Let's
A criminal
say
complaint was
I,
filed yesterday here in Latah
parked the
County,
car in the Harvard Yard.
charging the defendant, Mr. Kohberger, with 4 counts of first-degree murder, in addition to felony burglary.
The next step in the legal process is a preliminary hearing.
And the thing why I think they have the right person is that, you have the FBI involved in this case as well. And listen, I know law enforcement and FBI get things wrong, but I think with the guidance, with Moscow and then the FBI being involved and going over what, particular evidence they had at that time to, say, hey, it is Brian Kohberger, allegedly Brian Kohberger. It's just, again, it makes the case that this is very, very strong.
Where prosecutors present evidence
Strong
and witnesses
evidence.
in an open court. The judge will also decide whether to send the case to district court. That hearing is set for the week of June 26th. Kohberger will then have an arraignment hearing where he will enter a plea of guilty or not guilty.
If the prosecutors and the defendants want to, they can engage in plea negotiations. Otherwise, both sides will begin to prepare their case for trial. Unclear how quickly a trial could occur.
So how strong is the case against Kohberger?
What the police have done here is generated a host of circumstantial pieces of evidence. So, we have a car here, we have a sheath here, we have a surveillance footage at this time, and we have this. And together, that overall circle paints a picture of we can put this person here at this particular time when these happen.
What we don't know yet is if Moscow police have found the murder weapon, likely a knife similar to this one, or if they've confirmed a motive.
And that's what we don't know either. That knife could have been found right now, and they're just not going to say anything until, until that first day in court. Nika said, I heard the FBI has a good track record. They hardly ever miss.
But University of Idaho Assistant Professor of Law Sam Newton says it's safe to assume they're still gathering evidence, meaning new tips are still helpful.
They think they have enough to sustain at least an arrest and moving forward there. They may not feel like they have enough to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And so releasing the name of a suspect to the public allows the police to get more information to solidify their case.
Newton says the defense may consider
Dr. Bob,
options.
the point
like
may be,
asking to
can I
move
get
the
away
case
with
to
it
another
as strong
jurisdiction
as
and
that
will comb
sounds,
through
as
the
strange
other
as that
tips
sounds?
collected.
Yeah, absolutely.
If Kohberger were to be convicted, sentencing could range up to the death penalty.
The maximum penalty for this offense, if you were to plead guilty or be found guilty, is death or imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes. Lethal injection is permitted in some cases in the state of Idaho and Latah County. Prosecutor Bill Thompson will ultimately make the determination of whether or not the death penalty is pursued here. But he's not talking.
We are limited on what we are allowed by the courts to say outside of the courtroom.
The court's gag order means investigators can't release information until the facts are exposed in court or in public documents.
There appear to be indications that the magistrate judge does have some concerns about information that could be released to the public and therefore prevent us from finding
And that's why I think the gag order, not letting that evidence get out there. And again, I've always said this too. Why would the prosecution be talking about this and putting everything out there? When you play poker, you don't play poker with your cards out like that.
Unbiased jury for this case.
Experts have pointed to holes in the case. Still, the prosecuting attorney is expressing optimism.
This is not the end of this investigation. In fact, this is a new beginning.
We're in eastern Pennsylvania. Brian Kohberger spent his teenage years and most of his adult life here. That includes stints at 2 local colleges, including DeSales. Now, police and prosecutors in this area want to know what he was up to all those years and are digging into their cold case files.
Just outside the open wilderness and resort towns of the Pocono Mountains lies a neighborhood called the Birches.
It's just a very quiet community.
These are the streets an accused killer once roamed as a teenager.
I've definitely seen it on TV. Who hasn't?
Now, Lynn Klein and others in the Pennsylvania communities where Brian Kohberger lived until last year want to know if he could have committed any crimes before he was charged with the murders at the University of Idaho.
Because anybody or any family that's been harmed or done wrong to deserves to know the truth.
Hi, everyone. Mark Barden here at Sandy Hook Promise.
Here. Let's get through this.
On December 14th, 2000.
It isn't just citizens.
But
Police
another
and prosecutors have asked the same question.
Your natural reaction is to
I
start
appreciate
wondering, okay,
all of you for hanging out here with me on your Sunday and Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Wednesday night, we're going to do a little East Palestine, Ohio. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I think some attention needs to be brought more to that, of what's going on down there now that some more information's come out. So we'll switch gears on Wednesday night, and then hopefully I'll have my guest show lined up. We're going to have some guests on the panel. We'll go back to Idaho with that guest panel. So,
okay, is this guy
wrap
wanted?
one up in
Is his name out there? Did he do anything here in Northampton County? Sorry, Houck.
Terrence Houck is district attorney of Northampton County and leads an office of more than 20 prosecutors and a half dozen detectives. It's here at Northampton Community College where Brian Kohberger took his first courses in higher education, graduating here in 2018. After Kohberger's arrest for the Idaho murders, Northampton County's district attorney ordered a review of unsolved cases in his county.
We have a crime information center that compiles information of people's description, size, weight, height, method of operation, things of that nature.
Obviously, you wonder whether or not there was any criminality that he committed here in Lehigh County or in the environs.
Jim Martin, district attorney of the neighboring county, Lehigh, also ordered a review of unsolved cases. Lehigh County is home to DeSales University, which Kohberger attended after Northampton Community College. He spent 4 years here studying criminal justice.
Brian Kohberger.
Earning a master's degree last summer. What does law enforcement do given that he did spend time here?
Well, we have a resource here called the Regional Intelligence and Investigation Center. It's the first thing I did was I asked the director of the RIC, as we call it, to see if we had any contact with Mr. Kohberger.
A data search of more than 6 million police incident reports in Pennsylvania turned up only one record with Kohberger's name. He called police from this bike trail one night to report that his car was locked behind a park gate.
There was a response from him thanking the police and apologizing for the inconvenience.
The district attorney in Monroe County, Pennsylvania, where Kohberger grew up and where a SWAT team arrested him on December 30th, did not respond to our questions. But in Northampton and Lehigh counties, both district attorneys say their investigations have found no links to Kohberger and any unsolved cases.
So we have no unsolved homicides that in any way meet the modus operandi of this event out.
Yeah.
Idaho.
There was nothing been brought to my attention. In fact, nothing with respect to Kohberger has come about in our investigations of cold cases or unsolved cases to this point.
And that should be some relief to a community that's been stunned and saddened by the murders of 4 college students 2,500 miles away.
It's a little close to home. You just don't expect it.
In December, people here were hit by a fact as cold and hard as steel, the once towering industry that fueled this part of Pennsylvania. One of their own was charged in a mass murder 2,500 miles away.
So I looked it up. I typed, Idaho murders, and then like, holy crap, that's Brian. That's Brian. I know Brian. That's wild to me. It's a shock, seeing someone you've known on TV.
Jack Bayless met Brian Kohberger in 8th grade when the two of them ran with a group of boys in this neighborhood near Albrightsville, Pennsylvania.
I want to say he wanted to be a cop since he was younger.
What kind of teenager was he?
He was pretty normal. He was definitely heavier set, and that caused issues in school, apparently.
But in high school, dramatic changes washed over Kohberger, according to several friends, including Bayless.
I believe it was the weight loss first. And I was, I want to say 14 to maybe 16, between there was the big weight loss. I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And then it was the drugs.
How did he get started in drugs?
He got in drugs via an acquaintance of his. It was definitely heroin. It was pretty gnarly.
Bayless doesn't know exactly when Kohberger got clean.
Last I saw him, he was pretty lucid.
But the two reconnected after Kohberger enrolled at DeSales University in Center Valley, right around the corner from Bayless's home. Kohberger's major, criminology.
He's always been kind of fascinated with kind of how the brain works and how people think and why they do what they do.
And so my senior year, I ended up in a biology class, which is where I met and interacted with Brian Kohberger.
What were your first impressions of the guy?
Brian seemed normal enough.
But that opinion did not last for Bernard James, a DeSales film student in 2018 when he attended a class with Kohberger.
One of the big parts of that biology class that we were in, we had a group project as a part of our final grade.
With 4 DeSales classmates on the project, Kohberger was chosen as team leader. Not surprising for the student DeSales professor Michelle Bolger called brilliant and one of the best students ever, according to an article in the Daily Mail. Dr. Bolger declined to comment to King 5. But to some classmates at the Christian University, Kohberger seemed more like a know-it-all.
The way that he came across in his speech, kind of person who has to use big words, the one always raising his hand in class.
And what happened then towards the end of this whole thing?
We're approaching the due date, and I was feeling like I was left out to dry.
Bernard James says Kohberger completed the class project without including him, resulting in a failed class in Bernard's final year at DeSales. He confronted Kohberger in the university library.
I remember him being very straight-faced, very almost emotionless with this. He kind of a small smile on his face. Like there's more to him than it seems. Very intense stare. I remember that. I'll never forget that. Looking right into my soul almost, as we were having this back and forth. Manipulative, cold.
Was he witnessing an odd personality trait or something more? After Kohberger's arrest, Bernard can't be sure.
I mean, it's not every day you expect to come into contact with someone who's accused of something like that, but I see it in some ways. I see the calculated side of him.
We're talking about 4 vicious stabbings here.
Yeah.
Could your friend have done this?
I hope he didn't do it. I'm a big believer in innocent until proven guilty. So I hope someone I know didn't do that,
Here in Pennsylvania, we've been unable to reach anyone from Kohberger's family. A public defender here who represented him during extradition proceedings has said that Kohberger looks forward to being exonerated in Idaho.
More minutes. We're going to wrap up the stream for the evening.
You just couldn't ask for better kids.
Dave Hayton considered Ethan Chapin family, all the Chapin kids actually. He and his wife watched them grow up in their Conway neighborhood and treated them like grandchildren. They'd come over for fudge sickles from the basement freezer. When the couple heard what had happened, they were crushed.
She's crying. And she says, Ethan's been murdered. And I just couldn't, you just can't get your head around it.
Ethan was a triplet. They attended the Conway School before moving on to Mount Vernon High, where Ethan played on the basketball team and graduated in 2019. The siblings were close. They even went to college together. Ethan and his brother were members of the same fraternity.
We have these other two kids that are very impacted by this, and they need to be.
The thing is like, you know, I sit here and look at all this and think of, you know, not only are the parents of these children affected, but look, it affects neighbors, it affects friends, it affects all of us. And, you know, when major tragedies like this happen, it can certainly break apart a family in divorce because there's so much, you know, shame and guilt, and it can tear apart a family. And I know that the Goncalveses were, you know, Kaylee's dad was saying that it, you know, they were having some issues at home, but they were going to stick together through all of this. And it's sad. It doesn't just affect the immediate family, but it affects every single person that came in contact with these individuals. And, you know, it affects me. But I'm sure you guys are all feeling the same way. I want to see justice for these individuals, for these victims' families, for the universities. You know, I want to see justice. And if it goes to trial and it's not Kohberger, then there's someone out there, or there's people that are out there that are responsible for this, and they need to be brought to justice. All right, absolutely. I'm sure they're going through it. 100%, Nika. All right, let's finish this one up.
Lifted up, cared for.
Ethan's parents say Ethan was the comedian of the family and was a lover of country music and sports. What did Ethan like to do?
Anything. You name it, he played it, literally. I think we just watched a thing from the university, spike ball champion, volleyball champion. I mean, he just literally would play and do anything.
Ethan's girlfriend, Xana Kernodle, was one of the other victims, and they were in the same room in the house. Ethan's parents say they just saw him the weekend before the murders at the University of Idaho's Parents' Weekend and felt so proud and at ease.
As we pulled out of Moscow, we literally were like, we've done it. We've literally done it as parents. We've created 3 incredible humans that will go on.
But now the future looks much different, and Ethan's future gone. Now their focus is on supporting Ethan's 2 other siblings and keeping his light alive.
If everybody was like Ethan Chapin in this world, it would be a better place.
Back pain and leg pain is one of the largest costs globally. As a matter of fact, over
a loving sister. Xana was such a light in my life and so many others. She was the person I could relate to the most, and she knew and understood me more than anyone.
A wise daughter.
She taught me a lot of stuff. She taught me how to be a dad.
Xana Kernodle's sister Jasmine remembers her as someone who could lift up a room. She was so positive and lighthearted and understood the gift of life more than anyone I know. Xana was originally from Avondale, Arizona. Her family later moved to Post Falls, Idaho. She played volleyball, soccer, and track at Post Falls High School. Xana went on to attend the University of Idaho. She pledged the Pi Beta Phi sorority and was majoring in marketing.
These kids didn't deserve this. These kids didn't deserve this.
According to an obituary in the Bonner County Daily Bee,
Xana loved listening to electronic dance music and going on family trips with her sister and father.
She was my baby sister, but she was so much wiser and experienced so much more in life than I ever have. She never let an opportunity pass her by and enjoyed all the moments she had.
At the University of Idaho, Xana lived in a rental house with 5 other women. One of her roommates, Madison Mogen, was also her co-worker at the Mad Greek restaurant.
I know she loved living in her house in Moscow with her friends. I would hear so many stories about her and her roommates, and it made me so happy to know she had such great friendships.
She was dating Ethan Chapin, her first boyfriend.
They were always so happy, and the way she would talk and smile about him was something I've never seen her do before. She truly loved him so much, and I know he had so much love for her. They had something so special, and everyone around them knew.
And Xana's loss has left those around her heartbroken.
Xana, you will not be forgotten. You have impacted so many lives and have given people so much love. I hope I can make you proud and try to leave an impact on this world and on people like you did.
Being comfy, cute pink things, smiling, dancing, and laughing. These are just some of the things Madison Mogen's friends and family remember that the 21-year-old loved.
It's just always making the best of every situation.
Maddie, as she was known, was from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Maddie was such an easygoing, loving child growing up.
Her family says she was inquisitive and curious. Big Steelers fans, her stepfather Scott Laramie shares a favorite memory from Maddie's time growing up.
Just watching the game with her, and every time the Steelers scored, I'd pick her up, and I'd hold her high in the air, and we'd celebrate together, and she'd always just laugh so hard at that.
Maddie grew up in northern Idaho with her best friend Kaylee Goncalves.
They were inseparable from the 6th grade on. The two of them were a force not to be reckoned with. They stuck together through everything.
Maddie loved to travel, especially with Kaylee and her family.
They were sisters. She was one of ours.
At the University of Idaho, Maddie was majoring in marketing. She worked at the Mad Greek restaurant and was using her marketing skills to run a social media campaign for the eatery. She was also a member of the Pi Beta Phi sorority. Her freshman year, Maddie met her boyfriend, Jake Schreiger. The couple dated for 2 years.
Maddie was my best friend. She was the first person I talked to every morning and the last person I talked to before bed.
Jake says Maddie knew her worth. She was beautiful, inside and out. And if you needed a shoulder to cry on, that was Maddie too.
Maddie was the best at spreading love to all those that were close to her.
Kaylee Goncalves leaves a big void in her big family. Growing up in Rathdrum, Idaho, they describe her as the ultimate middle child.
She was always competitive. There was never a day that she didn't want to race her brother because she was just determined that girls were faster than boys. Or that she didn't want to go bug her little sisters and make sure they knew that she was older.
Smack dab in the middle of 5 kids, Kaylee's mother, Christy, can't imagine what the family will be like without her.
The dynamics of the family will never be the same.
The 21-year-old was a senior at the University of Idaho. She was majoring in general studies. According to an obituary in the Coeur d'Alene Press, she was studying to become an elementary school teacher. Kaylee had a heart for adventure, was known for playing pranks on her family. She also loved her mini golden doodle Murphy, who her family says was her fur baby. Her sister Olivia says Kaylee was tough and fair, didn't hold back in love, fights, or life.
We'll miss that gift that she brought to us every single day, and she was a little ornery too, so we'll miss that as well.
Kaylee's father, Steve, smiles as he reflects on her love of country music and concerts. Her love of her best friend, Madison Mogen. She grew up alongside Madison. She died alongside her too.
They were beyond sisters, because sisters are you kind of forced to get along. These two didn't. They weren't forced. They were just like yin and yang.
The national spotlight may be on the suspect, but Steve wants to keep the focus on the beautiful lives lost. Moving forward, he's also working on forgiveness.
We're not going to walk around with darkness in our heart for the rest of our lives and, have his name written there like a tattoo on our consciousness. So yeah, you have to forget. At least I feel you have to forgive. Otherwise, it's just a cancer inside you, and I'm not willing to live with that
Couldn't even
inside
imagine.
me.
There's still a long way to go until the Moscow Police Department can claim a conviction. Brian Kohberger's case is working its way through the legal system. Meanwhile, for the families of Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan, they're just beginning the long process of healing. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Sebastian Robertson.
All right. Big shout out to King 5 in Seattle. It's a really nice, really nice. I don't think that's the word I was looking for. Informative mini docu and a nice tribute to the end of the 4 victims. Is sad. It's just a sad case. And these kids, they didn't know. They had no clue. They didn't deserve this. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this one up. I'm going to get some rest. Be back on Wednesday night. We're going to switch gears on Wednesday. I got to pull away from this for a little bit, and we'll talk East Palestine, what's going on out with the rail disaster and the response to it. And I got a lot to talk about and a lot to say there. So again, I'm working on getting some guests here on the show within the next week or two. Hopefully we'll get that posted up for you guys. And again, always live streams every Sunday and Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I appreciate all of you for hanging out this evening. Really great stream. And I appreciate all the subscribers to the channel, everybody that supports. The channel is growing. And the only way that it will continue to grow is when I drop videos that you guys go over and, view them, like them, comment, because that will keep continuing to push them out into the algorithm. I make just to give everybody kind of a heads up. If I'm going to drop a video, it's usually during the week, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the East Coast. And then you can always catch up if you haven't seen it. Make sure you turn your bell notifications on, because that will give you notifications when I go live and when I drop new videos. Let me just get to this really quick. Nika said, strong man. Yes, her father's very strong. Kristen's asked, his testimony was good. Would like to hear your thoughts. Have a nice night all. Yeah, so I think I've been pretty much open about how I feel about all of this. These kids didn't deserve it. They didn't see it coming. It's tragic. It's very, very tragic. And again, we'll switch up on Wednesday night. I got to kind of pull myself out of this a little bit, and I have my story to share soon about one of my friends, one of my best friends, my childhood best friends. I talked about it on the last stream, and I'm actually digging out news articles that I can share with you guys, and I'll kind of take you through my story. So, Alex Murdoch, yeah, I mean, my thoughts on that. I still think the dude is super guilty. I just don't. I don't know. I don't see why he wouldn't be. I mean, he's been on the stand, ultimately said that he's lied about every single thing pretty much in his life, but he's not going to lie about not killing his wife and kid. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. He's lied to everybody around him. He's stolen money. He's done drugs, but all of a sudden, he's not going to kill his wife and child. I just think he's guilty, in my opinion. That's kind of where I stand with that. But anyway, I'm going to end the show this evening. I thank everybody again for hanging in with me, watching the stream. I love all of you. I love my subscribers. I love all the chatters here. All my moderators, thank you so much for being in the chat and chatting, and my supporters that do monthly contributions. Kristen, you're You're one of them there. And I will see you guys back on Wednesday evening. Wait, hang on one second. Let me just get to this chat. It's coming up. Jack in the Box. Bernice says, Jack in the Box for the DoorDash out of Pullman, Washington. Thank you for letting me know that. I did not know that. Thank you so much for getting that to me. We'll be back on Wednesday. You guys want to come over and talk East Palestine? I think there's a lot to talk about there. In itself, it is a crime. And that's what we talk about here on this channel. I got a lot to say about that situation. I'm not happy about it. All right, guys. Everybody have a fantastic Monday tomorrow. I'll see you guys back here on Wednesday night. I got to hit the outro. Have a good night. See you guys. Bye.